Welcome to See You on the Other Side, where the world of the mysterious collides with the world of entertainment. A discussion of art, music, movies, spirituality, the weird, and self-discovery. And now, your hosts, musicians and entertainers who have their own weakness for the weird, Mike and Wendy from the band Sunspot.
All right, welcome to See You on the Other Side. And today, it's me, Mike, and I'm with Wendy.
Hi, everybody.
And my sister, Allison Jorlin from Milwaukee Ghosts.
Hello, everybody.
And today, we have not one, but we've got several excellent guests on the topic of cryptozoology. Today's show will be a real monster mashup. Joining us is Linda Godfrey, who uncovered tales of an upright wolf creature in Elkhorn, Wisconsin in the early 90s called the Bray Road Beast. Since then, she's written many books on cryptozoology and other strange phenomena. Also joining us is J. Nathan Couch. Nate is the author of 2 books on paranormal topics. His latest is Goatman, Flesh or Folklore. And last but not least is Jay Bachochin, a Wisconsin researcher who hunts the truth and is arguably one of the hardest working investigators out there in the field of Bigfoot research. He has clocked countless hours searching for the unknown and hunting the truth. How's everybody doing?
Great.
Awesome.
Doing great, thanks.
Fantastic. So let's starting out giving everybody a chance to introduce themselves for a second. Linda, we'll start with you. Tell us a little bit about your research.
Well, it is not just about wolfmen or werewolves, or as I like to call it, the unknown upright canines. But right from the very beginning, 20-some years ago, people started sending me their reports on Bigfoot, giant birds, and goatmen, yes, pigmen, and all manner of really weird things, not just in Wisconsin, but everywhere. And I've been really writing a little bit more about that broad span of unknown creatures that most people don't realize exist.
Cool. Nate, why don't you tell us a little bit about your research?
Well, Goatman, Flesh or Folklore is a little complicated. Half of the book is basically research into the origin of the urban legends of Goatman, which all seem to have started simultaneously around the country at roughly the same period in time. And the other half of it is an investigation into known sightings of what might be a cryptozoological creature.
Very cool, very cool. And then, Jay, what kind of truth are you be hunting?
I am hunting any truth. I'm not a ghost hunter, a cryptozoologist, or a ufologist. I'm kind of wrapped into one. I call myself a truthologist because I'm going to seek everything from fringe science to, the UFOs, unknown creatures. If there's something odd and bizarre, I'm all over it. That's basically what I've been doing.
Okay, very cool. Very cool. And just before we start getting into some back and forth and things like that, I think our listeners might be interested in hearing about each of one of your favorite stories. So, Linda, let's start with you. What's just one of your favorites that off the top of your head?
Well, I have to always go to, my most personal experience with Bigfoot, which was when I saw a 35-foot, 7 to 8 inch diameter limb being ripped from a living oak tree in 2 giant snaps right in front of me. I mean, it wasn't like somewhere far away. It was right in front of me where I was witnessing it happen within, the span of less than a minute. And then watching it drop down to the kettle floor 40 feet below. It was in the kettle moraine. And at that point, I knew what it was. I knew that Bigfoot was real. I was scared out of my wits. I ran. I will admit it. I wasn't armed. I didn't have a camera. I was just out for a walk, when that happened. And that kind of really, really changed my my view on you can know things intellectually and learn about them and want to know them. And it wasn't that I hadn't been out in the field a lot. I had. But just sometimes you need that face-to-face moment to really bring it all home, and that's really what happened. I also had a really recent contact with an unknown light object with 2 other researchers, and if you want me to talk about that at some point, I'd be glad to do that too. It was at a sightings location, creature sightings location. Yeah, it was amazing.
Awesome. Nate, what's your favorite paranormal story?
Well, my favorite paranormal story actually is it doesn't involve cryptids so much. I haven't done a ton of research out in the field like Linda as far as looking for physical animals, but once I went to Mammoth Cave Park in Kentucky, and I took a cave tour because the cave's supposed to be haunted. There's natives had buried their dead there that had been mummified, and there had been a tuberculosis hospital down there, and all of those sorts of things. Of course, there's 100 people on the tour, so nothing really happened. At least nothing that you could notice.
Right.
100 people on a tour, 102 probably counting the park rangers, and so after it was over, we decided just to walk along one of the nature trails. And we're walking down, I think it's the Cedar Sink Trail, they call it. It's getting near to twilight. The light's getting softer. My wife asked me a question about some sort of plant growing near the trail. I didn't have an answer for her. She started down the trail, and I'm just kind of relaxing, unplugging my eyes and looking at these plants. And I see very clearly right in front of my eyes, a woman's face materialize. It looked like something out of a sepia-tone photograph. She had dark hair in a bun with one curl hanging down on her forehead. She looked very stoic, thin face, angular chin, thin nose. I'll never forget what she looked like, and it happened so quickly, I don't think my brain could process it. I just turned and started walking away from it, and within about 2 seconds, I'm like, I just saw a woman's face. Probably more than that, probably in like a second. And I quickly turned back around, and of course, this amazing thing was gone.
Oh my gosh.
Okay. Very, very cool.
Wow.
Now, Jay, hit me with your best.
Hit you with your best. Which one?
Right. Your favorite story.
Well, I'll tell you, I'm out in the field quite a bit, at least, at least 4 times a month. If I'm not at home on the weekends or whatnot, I'm out there. This would have happened back in February of this year. Would have been my biggest account of seeing what I believe was a Bigfoot. And I go out at night. I figure, there'd be a good chance to weed out any other humans being out there causing anything. I know it's an uncontrolled environment with animals, but we turned our lights off. You could see almost like an animal out there with a snow-covered ground and the trees, and we were up in one kettle off the beaten path, just sitting quietly and waiting. And sure enough, here it comes right behind. It was about 30 yards away, had to have been close to 8 foot and about 4 foot wide silhouette of something that just kind of rocked back and forth shortly and then moved from one tree to another. The odd thing about it is the way it moved. If I didn't know anything about Bigfoot or any research on that, I would swear it would have been a black silhouette of a ghost, because it moved like it just glided.
Like a shadow person, maybe?
Well, yeah, but the thing is, it wasn't a shadow. You could tell it was solid. It was
opaque.
A silhouette. Yes, and you try to get the depth of that, but
wow.
This is the reason why I'm constantly out in the field. And I mean, just recently of late, seeing these diffused white lights out there, which is, again, I don't know if that's associated with the Bigfoot. That's why I'm actually doing this, but I'm also getting red eyes and pure darkness, several of them just popping up. And again, I don't have all the answers. That's exactly why I'm out there. So I would say right now that would probably be my best up to date.
That's a pretty good one.
Yeah.
Well, I'd say all of these, personal experiences that you guys had are really great. And one thing though that I was just thinking about this last weekend, and I was thinking about Bigfoot, and I was we spend a lot of time in northern Wisconsin as a band. Wendy and I do. We go play shows in at snowmobile bars and stuff like that because, let's be honest, those guys know how to party and they like our band, and that means they're right on. So
they need entertainment too.
Yeah.
Right. So we're up north, we're visiting these places, and they just don't feel that remote. So if Bigfoot is out there or there are mysteries out there, how would they really escape detection? How wouldn't we see these guys when you've got drunken snowmobilers going through these areas all the time? Like, how did we miss them?
I think that they're there, and in the same way that a mountain lion was able to travel from southern Wisconsin to almost downtown Chicago 5 years ago without being seen by anyone until it got to such a populated urban area that it had to be shot almost right away because it was an immediate threat to people who were around there. And I mean, it was a decent sized mountain lion too. I think there are very intelligent creatures, and most people in the field, I think, believe that the upright canines and the Bigfoot are a hair more intelligent than bears, wolves, or mountain lions anyway, and they just all have their means of getting around and being undetected. I was talking to a wildlife expert, actually the witness that I was talking to this morning, who told me that a cougar or mountain lion can be 15 feet away from you and you won't see it if it doesn't want you to see it.
That's unbelievable.
Wait, does that? I'm looking out my window right now. Does that mean there could be a mountain lion in my parking lot?
Definitely. Yeah, it could be.
Well, remember, there was one in my backyard this summer.
That's right.
There you go. Yeah, there's been one in my backyard, and we live 8 miles north of Elkhorn. So it stalked my husband at night. And I'm lucky I was on the radio with headphones and the microphone. He could have been screaming his head off out there.
Gosh.
And, being
cow.
eaten, and I
Holy
wouldn't
cow.
have known. Yeah, he had to back all the way up our backyard to the deck,
Wow.
kicking at it, waving his hands and yelling. And it was snarling, pacing him. So, and he saw it the next day for confirmation. And
That's
so did two of our-
real. That's real danger. I mean,
Yes.
that's
And
very scary.
So did two of our neighbors. Well, and these things are around. I mean, I was with Jay and another researcher, Sanjay Singhal. Was it last winter, Jay, that we went back in and we saw literally hundreds of very large mountain
Yeah,
lions.
I believe that was in March. I was actually just going through those files today. Yes, you're right.
Yeah, there were literally hundreds of them. They're very easy to tell. And when we still went in and walked, and when we came back, there were fresher ones over the other ones that we had seen. So it was tracking us at the time.
Yes.
So if these things can get around without, and we did not see it or have any idea, just by visualizing it. It was only by the tracks. So if these creatures can do it, I think that Sasquatch and the Dogman are probably equally or more capable.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Oh no, I was going to throw in there, which I do agree with, but at the same time, I'm thinking how ancient is the Bigfoot or these type of beings or creatures, and actually I like to refer to them actually as people more so than a primate or a creature, but
He's the Jane. You are the Jane Goodall of Bigfoot, Jay.
that's odd you say that. That's actually
That's
like
amazing
third
in and
time
of
somebody has
itself.
said that to me in the past 2 months. And the thing is, it's true because when I'm out there now, I'm actually trying to do more of contact than trying to prove to the world that they exist, because it doesn't matter if I had the best HD footage or recording. I'd be just deemed as a hoaxer or a great CGIer, but I really think...
Yeah, nobody would trust necessarily.
Well, honestly, that's the point I'm at. I am not out to try to prove it, to get famous, to get rich, just to network with other people that are doing the same thing I'm doing, to be able to show that. And, again, I don't think anybody has...
You don't have a dead Bigfoot in your
Yeah,
freezer
no, I don't...
that you want to bring around for $2 a gander?
Yeah, no Bigfoot in the freezer. But again, getting back to how are they not detected, again, we won't know that yet until we research it and actually find and study and find more answers. But, if they are ancient, let's say they've been around for thousands of years, I think they've gotten pretty good at what they do. And, and as people are moving in around them, creating cities, they're finding their homes. That's what I believe. Somebody just showed me a picture of a deer right on the tree line of the woods, and you had to really, really look at it. You couldn't even see the deer, and it was literally 20 yards right in front of you. So who knows? They're just the master of camouflage.
Okay. Now, I think everyone listening is probably familiar with Bigfoot. we've all seen Harry and the Hendersons and stuff like that. So we
Great example.
but you know what I mean? That's
I love that
kinda-
movie.
Right, we all do. I mean, John
That is a
Lithgow. You gotta love
classic.
John Lithgow, and it's a lovely movie. But Nate, now what possessed you to write a book about Jim Brewer? And
Let's go, boy.
And how often do you hear that joke? You got to hear that joke all the time. I'm sorry.
I've heard it about 600 times,
Okay, 600,
Wow, good job, Mike.
601 today.
but I'm not counting. So.
So, give us a little bit on Goatman. I really don't know enough about it, and so I'd love to know more. Like, what's Goatman? Where do you find him?
Well, Goatman is really tricky because essentially he's described mostly as resembling a Greek satyr, which is a nature spirit from Greek mythology. Also resembles a faun from Roman mythology, which are very similar.
So, like, think
Basically,
about
they were-
Pan or Dionysus, right? Like how we
Yes.
picture them, or the traditional way we picture maybe the devil.
Yeah, the modern depictions of the devil are derived from Pan, and Pan is similar to what we now think of as a satyr. Satyrs were originally depicted as basically just handsome young men with ears and tails like donkeys, but they eventually became goat-like with Roman influence. But so it usually looks like a half man, half goat like Pan. Sometimes it's described as being completely hirsute with the head of a goat. And what really makes it difficult is there's every location where there's a Goatman scene, primarily there is a some kind of legend that involves stuff that is absolutely impossible to be true. We're talking about mad scientists and satanic worship and all this sort of just B-movie nonsense. And
These are a few of my favorite things.
and so I tried to do with
our
Goatman
wheelhouse.
Flesh or folklore. Well, the original inspiration for the book was I talked to somebody who actually saw it, because I thought it was all just a collection of strange urban legends. But once I talked to someone here in Washington County that had saw it one morning while they were deer hunting, that changed everything for me. And I started finding more and more people who were reporting sightings that sounded like something from Cryptozoology. So basically, I wanted to figure out the urban legends, find out where they came from, but also try to understand what people were seeing. And my conclusion as to what people are seeing is that this is, I think these things do have to be some type of elemental, like spirit or nature spirit, some type of supernatural being, maybe some interdimensional type thing that we occasionally get a glimpse of, because they're always seen in locations that are either in the middle of suburbia or within a mile or two outside of it. And granted, you hear stories about Bigfoot as well, but a lot of Goatman sightings incorporate some real high strangeness, as they refer to it in the Fortean circles. You're talking about creatures that can disappear, like vanish right before your eyes in a blinding flash, or speak English and actually communicate with you. Just use hypnosis almost in some cases. So I don't really think that Goatman is something that might be a biological creature, which is what a lot of people side with on the whole Bigfoot thing.
I want to say something here because I'm
Please
just
do.
making a connection. The whole idea that maybe the Goatman, you can communicate with it. That reminds me of one of Linda's early stories about the Beast of Bray Road, or the upright canid that someone saw it. I think it was in the 40s, Linda, and this creature came forward and said something to him. Could you recount that? Do you remember that one?
Yeah, that's one of the most famous. That's the Gadara story. And it was 1936. Is this ringing the right bell to you? And it was St. Coletta Institute, which is it's closed now as that, but for a long time it was a Catholic-owned organization that took care of people with developmental disabilities, that kind of thing. And there was a night watchman who was a former boxer and a devout Catholic, and a very big guy with a very big kind of original primitive flashlight type of thing. And he was making his rounds, and there were a number of ancient burial mounds on the grounds of this place. And he came upon one burial mound, and there was this huge creature digging in it with its claws. And he encountered it 2 nights in a row. And the first night, the creature ran away. And the second night, when he came back, it was there. And this time it stood up and looked at him and said what he interpreted as sounding like Gadara. And now, I always play devil's advocate with myself. And Gadara, on one hand, is a biblical name for a region in Galilee where Jesus was practicing and performing miracles, and he actually, in this particular instance, drove the demon that was in a man into a herd of swine, which then ran into the sea, and that was called Gadara. Now, the other interpretation is that you take the consonants G and D and R, and you've got the elements of a growl or a prolonged growl, and it could, to my mind, have been just kind of an unusual growl sort of thing, too. So, I've never claimed that it's exactly had to be the name of this biblical place, but it is sort of interesting that it being a religious institution and the guard being devout, and that he insisted it sounded like the word Gadara. And he described the creature as a demon straight out of hell. He was very afraid of it and never told anyone until his own son was sitting by him on what the man thought was his deathbed time. He did live a few more years, but he confessed this as the one thing he wanted his son to know, and he guided him to draw a photo of it. Draw a picture of it. And this man was the editor of a paper in Kenosha, and got a hold of me when the first Beast of Bray Road story came out and said, this is what my dad saw, and I've done a lot of research into that, and there were weird things happening out in that area afterward. There were spirit possessions and exorcisms and weird things like that I've gone into in some of my later books. So it was sort of an ongoing thing. But that communication was what really startled everybody the most about that story.
Yeah, I mean that's an amazing story that, when I first heard it, it really made an impression on me. And this whole idea that, maybe these things are elementals or nature spirits or, something different than a biological creature, it's just fascinating. And it connects with, I was in Oahu this summer, and they have tales there of a spirit called Kaupe, which sounds exactly like the dogman or an upright canid. It's described the same way, seen along the road, and witnesses think it's a dog by the side of the road until it stands up. And I was like, how
familiar.
I know, right? That just shook me to the core when I heard that. So, all the way in Oahu for them to have, such a similar story as we have here in Wisconsin.
One of the things that I find interesting, all three creatures we've talked about so far, there's the Native American connection. Of course, some people say that Bigfoot is the Native American, Sasquatch creature they believed in. And then Linda's noted several times in a few of her books that a lot of these dog creatures that she researches are seen near sacred Native American ground. Then Goatman, of course, there's a couple of different tribes. The Piscataway out on the East Coast used to have a deity that they would wear horns to worship that Europeans described as looking like a devil. Whether or not that meant he was goat-like, I couldn't tell you. And then the mound builders here in Wisconsin, of course, built man mounds that look a lot like a Greek satyr. They have the horns. They are lacking in hooves, but they all look very goatman-like. So some people believe that those mounds represent Redhorn, Native American, god creature, hero god, I think is how you would say it. But no one really knows who the mound builders are. That we assume that they're the ancestors of more modern tribes, but we really don't know. There's a new kiosk at Lizard Mound County Park here in West Bend where there's a lot of these mounds, and there's a button, who are the mound builders, and you press it, and it's like listening to a politician. They say a lot, but they don't tell you who they are. So, because I really don't know.
Right.
Well, there's a lot of different sorts of mounds too. You know, there are the ancient animal effigy mounds are the ones that I've connected to the spirit things. But there's also large round burial mounds in places. There are also the Mississippian mounds, like we have at Aztlan, which are related to those at Cahokia, and these are all from slightly different eras, and I think these mounds were being used and built by Native Americans for many thousands of years, and they just sort of evolved and changed according to the tribe and the terrain, and each of the American nations probably had their own symbology for the mound. So I think the reason it seems so confusing, Nathan, is because there really is a whole wealth of differences between them. And it is, you're right, it's very hard to sort them out when you just look at something like that.
Well, just when you think about a Western culture and you think about the way that we do graveyards, everybody, when you go to a graveyard on the East Coast and you see somebody buried in 1782, you're like, holy cow, 1782, I can't believe it. And that's just 233 years, right?
Yep.
Imagine if you're going back 1,000 years. It's going to be completely different. It's like when you go to Europe and you go to the places at the catacombs or the places where they have the plague dead, and there's hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people just thrown in and buried, completely different kind of thing. So for us to just look at that with just saying that, Native Americans were like a monoculture or something. I mean, they're just, it's hundreds of cultures over thousands of years. And it's like comparing a cemetery in Boston from the 18th century to a cemetery in Milwaukee from the 20th. And it's just completely different.
Right.
One question I wanted to ask everybody, since we were kind of talking about cryptids as elementals or non-physical creatures, when we try to use a physical way to describe the Loch Ness Monster, it's like, well, it's a plesiosaur, you know what I mean? It's going to be a dinosaur in the lake. Okay, that's one way to think of it. But what about tulpas? What about the idea that these cryptids are thought forms? We are seeing something, whether it's an elemental or whether it's a spirit or whether it's something non-physical, and how we choose to interpret it in our head would be, you'd see it as Bigfoot, or you'd see it as the traditional Christian form of the devil, Pan, the goat man kind of thing. And I don't know if you guys, I've had a personal experience with a tulpa.
Oh, let's hear it.
What? Are you holding on me, Mike?
No,
I don't remember
this is on the Sunspot blog.
Oh, okay.
I'm curious now too.
I
gotta read your blog to know.
You do, but this is years ago. This is when my wife now and I, we visited the Blarney Castle in Ireland, and we went to the castle and did the whole thing and kissed the Blarney Stone, and that was fun and a joke. But we're walking around the grounds. And it's pretty solitary. Like there's maybe 50 people at the castle that day. It was rainy and crappy. This is the Ireland during the summer when it's rainy. It's never like super warm. It's never super. Right. But we're walking through the grounds, and it's pretty. We're the only people in this part of the park, and looking, just saw like an animal looking back at us. I saw a dog, my wife saw a cat, and we both saw a different creature we were looking at. And then I took a picture of it, and it just looks like a black form of a cat. Against.
I remember you telling me about that.
Oh, I thought I did. It was something, but we both kind of were we were just real open to experiences that day, kind of thing. She had a real conflict in her life where she was considering going into veterinary work and stuff like that, and considered a job offer she had from a cat clinic, kind of thing. And so she saw a cat, and I saw like a big dog wolf looking at us, maybe 200, 300 yards away. And then we're like, do you see that? You're like, yeah, I see that. I'm like, huh, that's weird. And like, what? And it kind of moved around a little bit, and then it disappeared. And like, it ran off and back and disappeared. But I did capture, and it just looks like a silhouette of a. I thought it was a dog, but I guess the picture looks like a cat. And us seeing two different kinds of animals made me think of a tulpa, a thought form. We saw something. She saw what she wanted to see. I guess I wanted to see a big dog that day. I don't know, but I saw something different. But we were both seeing something different. And how can we relate that to some of these cryptids that people might see, whether it's Bigfoot or the Goat Man or something like that? And just wondering what your research has kind of shown on that.
Well, with Goat, I didn't mean to cut anybody off there, but with
Please
Goat
do.
Man, it works in some locations, like in an area where the kids go and they know this is Goat Man Road. We're gonna see a Goat Man here potential if we go. If somebody does see one on Goat Man Road, that could really explain it. But I have noticed that some of these sightings predate those legends considerably. And some of the sightings actually have occurred in areas where I have not been able to locate a tradition of Goatman urban legends. There was a couple. I really want to say it was in Iowa. We're driving back from a wedding late one night. Both had claimed to be completely alcohol-free, and they saw what they described as looking like Pan walking around in a field with glowing yellow eyes. And this was in 1970s America. I suppose one of them could have been really into mythology, but I don't know that. So it seems like an unlikely thing to see in the middle of an Iowa field. You think if they were thinking like, oh, this is a creepy place to see a monster, they would have, reported a Bigfoot sighting or something if it was a tulpa.
Well, I had a similar experience to you with the two people looking at the same thing, supposedly, and seeing two different things. And to me, there's a slight differentiation. To me, the tulpa is something that adepts or people who are in certain religions train themselves to actually create a thought form and then project it. And then there's the other idea where something like maybe some sort of nature spirit or other entity that we don't understand can use our own human consciousness, kind of come in and then, it's acting upon us. Instead of us creating something and acting upon it to go out and do things, something that's already there is interacting with the human consciousness, and then it is actually projecting itself or manifesting itself in a way that it couldn't without our attention. And I was looking for ghosts in Michigan when I was doing my book Weird Michigan for the Barnes & Noble series, and I came into the little town of Manistee, discovered there was a historian downtown. He pointed me to a lady who had never heard of me. She had no idea that I was coming. I had no idea she was there, so there was no possibility for collusion. And she was supposed to have a ghost in her basement, which was an old tavern called Basement Billy. And he was supposed to have lived there and died in his late teens or early 20s. And people would see him not just in the basement of this building, but in the parking lot outside and around different places. He was quite well known. I'd never heard of Basement Billy. But we went down in the basement.
He loved alliteration.
Exactly.
He sounds like fun.
I like his name.
Yeah, it's kind of like Beast of Bray Road and
Basement.
Basement Billy. That would be a great rock band, I think.
Sounds like an old Atari
That would
game.
be.
Yeah, it does. It's an old Atari game for sure. But anyway, we went down in the basement, and I mean, this was the kind of thing where I had to stop wherever I thought there might be a ghost to try and take a picture for the book. And of course, you never get a picture of anything, right? Or you never see anything when you're there. So we go downstairs. We're standing in this big open dirt floor basement with a low ceiling. The only ductwork is wrapped in brown paper. There's nothing reflective. I said, well, let's turn off the light for a minute. So we turned off the light. We were in pitch blackness, and this white basketball-sized ball of sort of, I say light, but it wasn't giving light, like lighting up the basement. It was sucking light in, sort of. It was just by itself. Appeared about 10 feet away from me, right near the ceiling, hovering. And I had the feeling that it was sentient and that it was curious about me. And I was so shocked. I mean, I'm standing there with a camera in my hands. I did not take a picture because I'm like, this can't be. That can't be. And I looked away and looked back, and it was still there. And just as I got my wits about me enough to, aim and shoot the camera, it slowly faded away right in front of my eyes. And I had the most horrible feeling. All I wanted to do was get out of that basement. And I asked the lady to turn the light switch back on, and she saw what she described as Basement Billy, which was the late 1800s young man dressed in period costume standing there looking at us. I saw the pure energy form. She saw the expected perception.
Wow, that's really cool.
So to me, it was like something was using us, and we saw what was available for them to use within our own consciousness.
Wow. And how would you describe? Could you describe the light again, Linda? Like the color and
the one that I saw.
Yeah, what you saw.
Yeah, it was perfectly round. It was about the size of a basketball, except it had some kind of triangular projections off to the side that were a little less well delineated than the orb of light itself. Almost like little wings, but not really. They didn't seem functional. They weren't quite as clear. But it was just a dull white. It wasn't real bright or anything. It was a dull white, no pattern, no color to it whatsoever. And then when it went away, it just kind of faded, kind of like the Cheshire Cat's grin is how I think of it. And then it was gone, and it would not come back. And I was thinking, if this was a trick of just my eyes and the blackness, it should have come back when I looked again in the certain same way. And I couldn't get it to come back. And that's when I got really afraid and nervous and wanted the lights back on.
One of the, just one quick aside, when you said that you had the camera in your hand and you were too surprised to even take the picture, that to me is a great explanation to skeptics as to why aren't there pictures of Bigfoot. Because there was a goat man, what might have been a goat man sighting 2 Septembers ago here in Washington County. This lady was driving home with her daughter late at night. They have to swerve to avoid this thing that dashed out in front of them with backwards bending legs. And somebody asked me on my blog, why didn't they take a picture? Well, in this instance, you're driving in a car at night. Hopefully you're not texting or talking on the phone. You got your daughter in the car. You're on a curvy, dangerous road over near Holy Hill Basilica and out in the middle of nowhere in the Kettle Moraine. And then this startling-looking creature dashes out in front of you. You've got to swerve to avoid hitting it because it might be human because it's on 2 legs.
Right.
And then if you got to get in your purse or your pocket, get your phone, get your 4-digit lock code on it, find the photo app, point the camera, and the thing almost got hit by a car. It's gone. It's not waiting for you to take a picture.
Right, and meanwhile your heart has basically stopped beating because you're so terrified.
And if it is,
your underwear is dirty.
To take its picture, probably a guy in a costume. So.
Yeah, and I've got a perfect example of that. 6 or 7 years ago, there was a mountain goat or a bighorn sheep, actually it was, from somewhere out west that was running around Elkhorn, and it just appeared one day in my own neighborhood, and this lady called me up to tell me about it, and I was actually the first person to report it in my blog that I had at that time called cnbc.com, and then the stations all picked up from that, and it got known, and they called it Al, that it had a nickname, and it soon started migrating into town, and this was no phantom. This was an actual...
Wait, why was the nickname Al?
They just they nicknamed it Big Al, actually. Well, I know I think the reason was that it was seen on the farm of a man who also was nicknamed Big Al, and so they were, I don't know, there was some inside joke.
I was just looking for it, just whatever.
Yeah, that was never really clear to me. But the thing was, when I was investigating it for my blog, I called up the local DNR warden that the woman had told me she called and was really poo-pooed by it. And I was, by him, I should say. And I was, you don't want to be poo-pooed by a mountain goat or a mountain sheep. That wouldn't be good. But anyway, this guy had made fun of her. And when I called him, he said, I have to eat some crow because I saw it yesterday. And I said, you did? Did you get a picture of it? And he said, no, it was impossible. It was galloping toward me from the passenger side. I had my camera lying on the passenger side of my car ready to go. All I had to do was pick it up. But he said I had to pull over first. By the time I pulled over, picked up the camera and just, tried to shoot out of the window, it had galloped so far away on the other side and across the road, galloped so far away that I couldn't get a photo of it any longer. And this is the DNR warden with the camera in his car ready to go.
And that's why you need, or why I recommend for people to pick up dash cams. I've actually got 3 dash cams in my car, one facing forward, one's over to my left, one's over to the right.
And I feel bad for the cop that pulls you over.
What's funny is I was pulled over about a week ago, and he did walk over there. He didn't really say anything about it, but honestly, that's exactly what I don't want to miss when I am driving, especially up north or anywhere near the kettle. Even down here, you never know. So that's probably your best bet. I just say invest in a good dash cam. They're not that expensive, and they're good for insurance.
You can get them very cheaply now.
You can, and they're good, great quality.
Actually,
I want one of those glasses with the camera that you just tap,
Oh, the Google Glass.
The Google. There are other brands now that are cheaper, because then you just turn your head and tap it. And I was looking those up the other day.
That's a great idea.
Now, I know we were talking about, anything that could actually be possibly maybe not quite flesh and blood. Maybe it is something that we haven't really talked about. It was, possible interdimension. I know this is just all by, theory and speculation. But I did have an encounter just about a month ago. I was out with researcher Mary Marshall of the Paranormal MD, and this is the great part about this is when you
that's Dr. Mary Marshall, right?
That is correct. Yes,
we met her in Chicago.
You sure did, and right. And we actually walked into a wall of lights. Now, if I could just try to explain it without, being visual here, they were actually like a diffuse pulsating light that started about as low as waist high and as high as about 40 feet. And they ranged from about 10 yards to our right to about 15 yards to our left. And it was just, they were there. It was the most bizarrest thing we've ever seen. And this is just like, a great researcher or investigator. We both have cameras. We're just sitting there staring at these things like, wait, what are we looking at? And this was really bizarre, and it was really kind of cool. Mary actually kept walking up closer to it, and she stuck her hand through. She actually thought she was going to go through a portal and end up in 1950s. Who knows? But
but let's set it up now. Where actually? What was the fit? Where were you guys?
Oh, I mean, these were actually on some trails of my research grounds. I usually don't give away exactly where I'm researching, just for the fact that but it was.
Give us the area of the state. You don't have to give us
Well, it was in Wisconsin. I could even say the kettle. The kettle's very large.
Right.
But we do have an area that I've been researching for. It's about 28 months now. I just remember the year. That's how come I can go by the months. But it was at night. It was actually during the supermoon, not the blood moon. I think the blood moon was on that Sunday. So this would have been, I believe they were saying it was the supermoon. And it was really light. Could have had it could have been a lunar effect, maybe. I'm not sure. But it was, we're out there in the dark. There's no lights on. Wow. And it was definitely nothing, I would say, that was, natural as far as anything I've ever seen. But this is also the area where we've been encountering what looks like red eyes or huge, silhouette shapes that are 8 feet tall. And again, I don't have those answers, but that's the reason why I'm out there, is to find out why you can find one Bigfoot print, let's say, and then there's no others, or several Bigfoot prints, and they just seem to disappear. I do have photographic evidence of 18 different footprints that were about 17 and a half inches length, 6 inches wide, with close to a 6-foot stride, and I saw no other disturbance around these as I followed them.
And this was nowhere near the Kohl Center where the Bucks play, right?
No, not at all. Well,
okay, just making sure.
Well, honestly, and that's exactly it. I'm always thinking of something like Finding Bigfoot or something where they look at one track or two, but they don't either show them, follow them. I don't know. I actually followed them, and I was documenting as I went along. The 18th print was actually on a dead oak with some snow cover on it, and you could see the heel print. But there was nothing after that, not along the huge oak, not, as far as I could see, 10 yards within a clearing. I didn't see any other
That's
prints.
weird.
And so I'm thinking, would it climb up a tree? But there was no tree that I saw in this particular clearing that it could have climbed up. So the thing is, it's either A, it has wings, which is even scarier, or B, where did it just disappear to? This is where the lights that are really intriguing to me.
And if you think about Bigfoot with wings, number one, like picture those flying monkeys from the Wizard of Oz on steroids, and that's what we got now.
There's a name for that, Bat Squatch.
Bat Squatch.
Oh, that's right. The Bat Squatch.
That's out in the Northwest, isn't it?
Bat Squatch. Yep, there are Bat Squatches. Yep.
Now, Allison, I know you had a particular question. Now we're speaking about this is maybe where Jay, like, Bigfoot stepped on that tree, and that was his one footstep into our reality. And speaking of reality, now I cut the cord, so I don't have cable anymore. But didn't the History Channel have a big thing this week?
Oh yes, Bigfoot captured.
Oh my! Oh yes.
Yeah. So we have to get your opinions on this this fake documentary. It was a big fake out once again, and mixing reality and a scripted show. And we just wanted to get your take on it. Why don't we start with Linda?
Well, I didn't think there was much reality in that to mix with the, with the scripted show. It seemed pretty scripted, and I had a bad feeling when I first saw the big cage being lowered, with them around it. It was just very much like other unnamed reality shows where
I know what you're thinking of.
Yeah, it just reminds me of other ones. But it was just a big disappointment because it didn't captured when you say Bigfoot captured, that implies that somebody had captured a Bigfoot and they had it. And of course that isn't true, or no reality show could just keep a lid on that and then spring the greatest monumental discovery in world's history all of a sudden is, yes, we've had this Bigfoot captured and put away until our opening night of our show. So you knew it wasn't going to be a real captured Bigfoot. But yeah, it just was like too many of the other really scripted things that did not work for me, put it that way.
Yeah. What did you think about it, Jay?
Me? I'm
sorry. You saw it. You saw it, Jay, right?
Yeah, of course. And I think I'm the only one that really has gone against the grain with it. I believe it's because I did go into it as if I was going to watch Willow Creek or a movie called Exist, or I don't want to say Harry and the Hendersons, but the type of movies that are supposed to be kind of real. So I knew going into it, and like Linda said, as soon as they dropped in the big cage, at least in the commercials, you're like, come on, really? And especially where they put the bait. I'm thinking where they put the bait, here's, there is a Bigfoot out there. He could easily just stay on the side, put his hand in, take it out. Why would he have to go in the middle? Anyway, but I did, honestly, I went into it with the entertainment value only. The acting was subpar, B-rated, scripted. But what I did like was all the other information they would break away to, with Jeff Meldrum, and creating a 3D skeleton of, how big a Sasquatch could be, just with other information that
that was cool.
About. Yeah,
Yeah, wait, Jeff, now explain who Jeff Meldrum is for our listeners real quick.
Well, I only know him as somebody who's in the field who is actually... Linda, I think you would probably actually know. I know him as Dr. Jeff Meldrum, where I followed him on a few shows. But as far as his credibility, he's been around a while, hasn't he, Linda?
Oh yeah, I mean he's written the authoritative books, and he has been the voice of authority on examining the footprint casts and explaining the mid-tarsal break and the dermal ridges that help us prove that these are actual footprints of some living creature and not just made with, a rubber or wooden outline of a large foot.
Science.
Science,
Yes.
exactly.
Yeah, I
He's
actually
a
think
professor of anatomy, isn't he? Is he a professor of anatomy?
Yeah, I'd hate to say exactly what his discipline is for fear I'd get it wrong not looking. But yeah, he's a well-known PhD who it's kind of a rarity to have someone with such great professional credentials truly looking into these things and not afraid of being made fun of, because there are so many that are just scared to death, even if they are interested, to come out there and have their own really well-considered opinions known, because they'll be threatened with their jobs and their livelihood and blackballed in various professional circles. And it's really great. I really appreciate having someone like him in the field.
And that's actually what made, to me, just looking at the Bigfoot Captured, having that portion of it being credible. I'm not a PhD in that field, and he could probably tell me it was a bone structure from a woolly mammoth to a Sasquatch, and I'd believe him until I'd actually researched that. But I did enjoy that part of the programming with the other information about sightings and whatnot. So, overall I give it, 7 out of 10 stars.
Oh,
All right.
wow.
Yeah.
Nate, what do you rate it?
That's
Does it have a
generous.
good beat? Can you dance to it?
I did not watch it, but I have no problem with that form of entertainment if it's properly labeled as pure entertainment. Like if they would, I don't know how they presented it because I didn't watch it. But if they would come back from every commercial break with a little disclaimer, this is a work of fiction, then that's fine. But this reminds me of that mermaid thing that happened a couple years ago, where I had people
Exactly.
coming up to me at work talking about how, did you hear they've discovered mermaids are real?
Yes.
I'm like, no, it's and I mean, and it's also like those creepy pastas, those basically premeditated urban legends that people post online, these vague short stories, essentially, that they try to pass off as real experiences. I mean, that's where Slender Man got his start, and I've had people come up to me and ask me if I've heard of Slender Man, if I've recorded any sightings, and this was before that unfortunate incident where here in Waukesha, Wisconsin, where the two troubled young girls tried to murder their friend as a Slender Man sacrifice. I mean, this stuff can be dangerous to portray it as real if it's not real, and it also is a huge disservice to the study of these things too. But if you're going to present it as fiction, say it's fiction, like with Mountain.
Right.
And here's actually what I say about it: anything on TV, it's for either entertainment, even the news. I don't even take as real. That's just me being honest right now, because we're so drawn to the visual and what we see and what's such a big influence on TV that I don't watch the reality paranormal shows at all, or the Bigfoot shows. Even some other ones that are out there that I could name that I won't. That I really just don't have any big interest in it. But after seeing Bigfoot Captured on there, I'm like, all right, I'm just going to DVR it, because Chicago Bears were on that night. But anyway, I DVR'd it.
I'm sorry, Jay.
That's okay. How are your Packers doing? So
I'll tell you tomorrow. I'm going to be at the game.
yeah,
Yeah, when he's playing in the drum line at the game.
no way.
Oh my gosh.
First one. Yep. Sorry,
That
that
is
was
Wow, that's
great.
great.
total sports ball deviation.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah,
okay.
no.
You know what?
I thought I was safe here.
No, but if we lose tomorrow, we can blame it on Wendy.
No, and I'll tell you what. I'll tell you what. I'll end that part of the sports part by saying, you know what, you guys will win the division. You're a good team. You'll probably go to the Super Bowl.
I don't know about that.
That's
Hey,
what I have to say
alright.
about that.
I thought you
right.
just had to incorporate the bears because they're, it's another creature. Whereas,
We see
going
it,
along with
yeah.
the topic
No,
of the conversation.
the Bears as a winning team is a cryptid. I think The only sighting they had was in 1985, wasn't it? Oh, okay.
Oh my gosh.
It was a confirmed sighting.
You know, yeah, that was a I believe we all saw the confirmed sighting in the Super Bowl
It's
Shuffle.
endangered. It's not a group.
But we should finish up with one last question for everybody, because I could probably talk with you guys all day, because really the amount of knowledge here about cryptozoology is fantastic. But we should just finish up with a little bit of final thoughts of what your favorite cryptid is and why. And maybe we can use as a starting point for our conversation for next time that we have a panel. Let's start with Linda.
Well, I guess I have to choose probably the one that I'm best known for, and which, excuse the pun, is sort of the underdog of cryptids for a long time. Because there was a very long. I've been collecting these stories and researching on my own for almost going on 24 years, and for much of that time, Dogman just wasn't getting much respect, and people were very, especially in the Bigfoot field, many of them were very reluctant to admit that such a thing could exist. And I just kept getting the reports and kept documenting them and interviewing. And I'm still doing that today. But I think I still am really intrigued by it because so little is really known about it, and it's not like you can, with Bigfoot, there are things you can look for if you're out, you can look for the structures that it's supposed to make, and you can look, the Bigfoot footprints are like no others, where, the dogmans are more canine, you have to distinguish them from a coyote or a wolf, that kind of thing. So it's just so much more mysterious in my mind than any of the others, even though they're all mysterious, but this is the most of all. So I guess for that reason, and because, it's just been such a big focus of my research, that I'd have to say it's still probably my favorite. But, I like all cryptids.
Jay, what's your favorite?
Well, I'm going to have to go with Bigfoot here. And the only...
Okay. Old reliable.
Yeah, old reliable. But the only reason why, and I have to, is since a kid, I've heard about Bigfoot. You've seen Harry and the Hendersons. You've heard people going out wood banging and yelling. And okay, are these people crazy? Is it possibly out there? I honestly think if it wasn't for just a great deal of evidence that would support a Bigfoot being out there, has got me hooked. I mean, like I said, I'm out there all the time. In fact, right now I'm talking to you guys. I'd rather be out there. I'm sorry, I didn't mean it like that. But I would.
I completely agree.
Honestly, I've got my car always loaded. I've got my supplies, everything ready to go. And there's always a certain draw that has me come up there. Am I the Jane Goodall of Bigfoot? I'm not going to say that, but I do, when I do research, do about the same things each time. So I'm hoping that something will get familiar with me, besides maybe a ranger saying, "Why are you always here?"
And how often do you go out, Jay?
If I go out, generally sometimes I'll go out in the afternoon like this and then get home at 1 or 2 in the morning. Sometimes I'll leave at, 8 or 9 and, get back again around 3, maybe 3:30, 4 o'clock. But it's a passion of mine. And actually people say it's an obsession, and it really is. I think it's between the prints, the recorded wood knocks that I've caught, the vocalizations, and actually seeing, that silhouette has got me hook, line, and sinker right now. And right now I'm not even looking to prove it, to write about it, to document it. Well, I do document it in photos and whatnot and share it, but I really do. I want to make contact. That's what I want to do.
He just wants to high five Bigfoot.
Yeah.
Give the big guy a hug.
Right. I have a request for you, Jay.
Yes.
We saw earlier that you have a Bigfoot call.
Yes.
Would you be able to blow the Bigfoot call whistle?
Yes. And actually, I know the listeners can't see exactly what I'm holding up, but it's a little plastic Bigfoot head. It almost looks like a kazoo. And it actually was $1. And it tells you that if you blow it lightly, it's a low growl. And if you blow it a little harder, you're going to get a high shriek. All right, ready?
Okay, let's
this
hear it.
is
All
going to
right,
be
give her a blow.
All right, here's the low growl. See? Pretty scary, huh?
You guys just
Sounds
have your
just like Bigfoot.
You guys just have your headphones on, not the speakers, right? You don't want Bigfoot showing up.
Okay.
No.
All right, now here's the shriek. You ready? That's about all I can get out of it. But
Wow, is that Bigfoot? Or do you have too
you.
much broccoli?
yeah, I don't know what it was.
Thank you for indulging me. I thought our
Awesome.
listeners might enjoy hearing the
Jay,
Bigfoot
You're
call.
welcome.
Nate, favorite cryptid. Finish her up.
I've always been really attracted to the high strangeness, the most bizarre things possible. That's probably one of the reasons why I spent 2 years researching Goatman. I think the strangest of all strange creatures has to be the Mothman out in Point Pleasant, West Virginia. I mean, Jonathan Keel's writing is amazing, so it's always fun to read anything he wrote on the subject. And then you have UFO sightings, you have alleged alien, contact, you have the whole Men in Black thing. It's just there's so many facets to it. It's you could spend a year reading up on Mothman and still find a new direction to go with it. So I mean, those really strange sightings that defy really all type of biological scientific explanation are the ones that really make you scratch your chin and wonder about reality itself. So you can really dig into the subject like that.
Right on. Allison, favorite cryptid?
Thunderbird.
Yay.
Thunderbird. And the Thunderbird will get its own episode coming up soon because we have Thunderbird stories to go. Wendy, favorite cryptid?
I don't know. I think I probably have to go with Bigfoot, actually. Just kind of agreeing with Jay with the growing up with it. There's it's wearing a t-shirt that says Bigfoot doesn't believe in you either. Great. But growing up, there were so many books and fun things, and it was just, he's a character.
And now there's beef jerky.
Right. My
Made
favorite
from 100% Sasquatch.
My favorite cryptid is the Kraken. I just love the idea that there's a little. First of all, the romance of just hitting the open sea and something like stuff like that, and then the idea of being attacked by a giant squid, which is real, is pretty exciting too. So I love the Kraken. I saw a giant squid exhibit at the Smithsonian a few years ago, and I thought it was brilliant.
Is that Phil McCracken?
Phil McCracken is the Kraken's brother, but we hang out sometimes. So I just want to, okay, so you guys check the show notes at othersidepodcast.com/66, and you're going to find links to Linda Godfrey and her books, links to WPI, Hunt the Truth, and then J. Nathan Couch's Goatman books and website. You'll see it all there. I want to thank you guys for joining us today. Allison from Milwaukee Ghost, thank you.
Thanks for having
everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You guys are absolutely awesome. We're going to have you on again in a couple months, and we can talk every time there's new news. We'd love to have you guys on to talk more about this. And Wendy and I will see you guys next week. This week's song from Sunspot is a little bit about what attracts us to all of this kind of stuff, and that's because we all enjoy the mystery. I met a girl who used to dance with some flowers in her hair, barefoot in the street to a song that seemed only she could hear. Well, we talked all night about wrong and right. We talked the Bible and prophecy. She said she don't care to a God, I swear, as long as I don't tell her what to believe. She said, when we know all there is to know, and there ain't nothing left to comprehend, when you think you found what you're looking for, I believe it's time you think again. Don't try so hard to understand the things you don't need your eyes to see, for knowing it all ain't part of the plan. So old man who used to laugh at some gag I couldn't hear out loud and big. Then he took a swig with some joker wasn't even there. Well, he lectured me on our frailty and the difference between man and divine. So don't waste your breath talking about your death, 'cause you'll live longer than you are alive. He said, when we know all there is to know, and there ain't nothing left to comprehend, when you think you found what you're looking for, I believe it's time you think again. Don't try so hard to understand the things you don't need your eyes to see, for knowing it all ain't part of the plan. So just enjoy the mystery.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. You can find us online at othersidepodcast.com. Until next time, see you on the other side.
See? Pretty scary, huh?